I went from the extremes
Yeah.
of wanting to get out and then detune totally so
Yeah.
that I could do the...
Which are two of the methods
Absolutely.
that you use.
And really, I mean, Dad was born in 1939 in England. There were bombs being exploded around him.
Yep.
He was terrified right from zero.
Well, his parents would have been terrified as well.
Yep, Grandpa was pulling them out of rubble, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was really shut down and very, very fearful, and I carried that into conception.
Mhm.
And so I don't even know how many feelings I've ever felt that were my own.
Be careful now, because you're basically saying that your dad's terror that he had while you were growing up or after you were conceived is not your own emotion. But his feelings did enter you. So the terror exists within you now because he didn't release it from himself.
Absolutely.
So this is your emotion.
But I'm wondering about how many spirits have overcloaked me right from the beginning because of his fear and...
The problem with spirits overcloaking you isn't about his fear. It's about your desire to avoid the fear.
And there's a lot of self-loathing as well that I've just become aware of because I didn't even know about the abuse until July.
Yeah, but you also choose to avoid the feeling of self-loathing,
Yeah.
which also then attracts spirits to come to you.
Yeah.
Every time you choose to avoid emotion, you will attract some spirits every time.
So I ask, I'm trying my best to connect with God and a celestial being, that they may assist me in feeling an emotion or showing me why I don't want to feel the emotion in that moment of time. You know, I mean, I've just detuned for so long, gone with the power struggle. You know, cancer then is about to kill me, and it's like I've really got to do something about this. The 8-year-old stuff came through.
Yeah. But if you examine even that, the desire for other people to help you is still not a choice to feel your own emotion. So
Avoiding.
It's still wanting someone else to be involved in the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, there's a difference between that and actually trusting that God's with you when you're feeling your own emotion. The fact that you want someone to share the process with you is actually a primary cause of cancer. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You want somebody else to be involved in it with you. Is a lot of these are projections that come out of people generally who get cancer, and there's an anger towards anybody who doesn't get involved in it with you.
And the anger's so huge because spirits just get in, and I've been locked up for that, you know, and it's...
Yeah, but it's not the spirit's fault that your anger is so huge.
No, it's my responsibility.
No, but that's not how you say it when you talk about it. You see, it's all, these feelings are in you.
Yeah.
And while you're trying to avoid them, you will create many circumstances and situations which are which you feel are justifiable, but they're not. They are your avoidance of the issue.
Yeah.
And whenever you get extreme anger to such a point that someone's got to constrain you, it's an indication of how much you wish to blame other people rather than just feel something. And in those places, certainly spirits will come and overcloak you, but it wouldn't happen if you loved yourself enough to feel your own feelings. Does that make sense? So we need to at some point make this choice to see that it's about every time I choose to avoid, I am going to have spirits come to me, I'm going to be yelling and screaming at other people, I'm going to act in a crazy manner, I might even lose my mind, all these things might happen, right? If I choose to avoid. They can only happen if I choose to avoid, actually.
And they've all happened.
And they will happen.
They have happened because I've avoided so
exactly.
much, and I don't...
So the key is to choose differently.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Well,
It's a start.
It's a start, but you find it very difficult to listen. And one reason why you find it difficult to listen is because there is already this feeling in you that I want other people to share my experience with me. And that's one of the emotions, one of the beliefs and methods that you're using to get away from your own experience.
It used to be my identity to talk about this incident and that incident, and I do my best not to go into what has come up more recently.
Yep.
So I don't want that is part of my identity, but I don't want people to know about it as much as I used to. So
Well, the reality is it's not a part of your identity. It's a part of the mud that's been thrown at you, and that's not your identity.
No, I realise a bit more about that now.
But many people who've been abused see it as a part of their identity. It's almost like a mark of their personality. They view it as a part of their personality. It's not a part of your personality either, by the way. Abuse is not a part of your personality. It's something that's been thrown at you that you've gone through an experience of. It doesn't mean that your real personality that God created is ever going to have in the future that part of it attached to you. In other words, the abuse is just something that happened to you, an experience that happened to you. It is not who you are.
I've looked at the soul and the information you provided, and I've found it very helpful just in conceptualising and doing my best to feel at a heart level.
Yep.
There's a long way to go.
So if the abuse is not who you are, then can you see if you release the abuse as an experience emotionally, it will no longer define who you are. And while you're telling the stories about the abuse to other people, you're still believing that it defines who you are. Does that make sense?
I can see
and
that.
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep. It only defines what happened to you.
Yeah.
And usually not even what you wanted to happen to you.
I didn't even know it happened.
You didn't, often we don't, well, we do always know, but often it's things that we weren't aware of in our later life because of denial. We won't even acknowledge what happened. And then we don't want to acknowledge what we do to control what happened. And then, of course, we feel that it's an act of love to not feel it rather than feel it. And because we have these basic belief systems, we don't finish up processing through any of it. Right?
Yeah, it's the hardest thing ever to go and process.
It is, but you also need to be careful that you don't wear that as a badge as well. Does that make sense? In other words, say, you haven't been sexually abused, you haven't been violently abused, you don't know how bad it is for me, and we've got to be very careful we don't use that as a badge, which is one of the methods we're using to avoid our personal experience of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we've got to take care, almost like what I notice a lot of people who have been violently or sexually abused doing is they're constantly coming up with all these statements that almost every statement needs to be challenged because every one of them is not in harmony with the truth about the situation.
Yeah, trying to feel special and worthy and all
Yeah,
that
there are many people who have been abused who feel that it's a special badge. And it's not. It's a terrible thing to have had happen, but it's not a badge that's going to define the rest of your existence. Yeah.
Thank you.
Come down here.